screen and it's on.
Okay.
All right, and then we'll get my script.
But again, I need to stay here.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
This area right here is good. All right, you're all set. I just need to get my script.
And I have to drive when he's having the eyes and, you know, when he's having
The injections? Oh, yeah, you want to drive, yeah.
fast.
A woman I know who gets those injections in her eyes, her daughter takes her.
Yeah.
She takes her to the Mass Eye in Boston to have it done.
And he goes right here. And, but he goes every 2 or 3 weeks. And, he used to go into Boston to the VA. And we decided that was an all-day affair, so we go to Rice Doctor here. And we go, but he's a terrible, terrible backseat driver. I say, I'm gonna throw him out of the car one day.
I hate it when my husband used to criticize my driving. It made my driving worse because it made me nervous.
No, I don't, it doesn't make me nervous, it makes me mad. If it says 30 miles an hour, I'll be in a pain, and I'm going 32 miles. Why are you going so fast?
32.
Where she wanted me to stand?
That's
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kira Stock. I'm Assistant Supervisor of Patron Experience, and I also work on the adult programming team here at the Framingham Public Library. Welcome. Welcome to you in person, and welcome to you watching online. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's Lunchtime Learning Series program. A few housekeeping notes up front. If you haven't already, please silence your cell phones. There will be a time for questions after the presentation. And there are evaluation forms in the back of the room. We would love to have you fill those out after the program. Give us ideas for future programs as well. We love to see that. And speaking of future programs, next month's Lunchtime Learning Series is South American Myths and Cosmology, an Illustrated Journey. And that's with local artist Samela St. Pierre. That's going to be in this room on Friday, May 5th at 12 o'clock. And tonight, the Friday night movie is Banshees of Inisherin, and that's in this room at 7 p.m. So today's discussion is led by MaryEllen Giombetti. She's a professional coach and health consultant, and we're going to explore strategies to reduce stress and bring more joy to our daily lives. So please help me welcome MaryEllen.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Framingham Public Library and Kira for inviting me here, and thanks for you all for coming out to join us. It's good to see you. It's good to be in person. And again, my name is MaryEllen Giombetti. I also go by Meg, and I am the founder of Empowered by Meg. And as Kira shared, I am a professional coach. I work in the capacity for life and professional development. I'm also an end-of-life doula, and I specialize in stress management, career, transition, emotional intelligence, and grief and end of life. So I'm happy to be here today to talk to you a little bit about stress and joy, two things that maybe you don't necessarily think go together, but they in fact do. So before we get started, I just want to share a couple other things. I want to make this very interactive, so I welcome you to share, to ask questions along the way. If you have something that you want to say out loud, please just stop me and feel free to interrupt. That's totally okay. And I want everybody to feel welcome and safe to share whatever on your mind. Sometimes when we're talking about stress, it can be stressful. So we're not here to critique or judge anybody. We're here to support one another and lift each other up. So this is a very inclusive and welcoming space for you. So I want you to know that. And I'm sure that you all want that for yourselves and each other. So do you have any questions before we get started? No? All right, great. All right, so I like to give you a little bit of a heads up about what we're going to talk about, how we're going to go through things. Give you a little bit of background information on me. I've been actually coaching folks for over 20 years, and I started my path in a human resources setting as a recruiter. So in the first part of my work, I was helping people and coaching them around their career and development. Then I moved into a public health setting. So for pretty much the last 20 years, my focus has been around health and wellness and coaching in that capacity. So stress and joy, those are two things that go into health and wellness, and it's a personal passion of mine to help folks in those capacities. I work with individuals. I also work with organizations and businesses, locally and then across the nation. And over the last few years, I think we can probably all agree that the last few years especially have brought a lot of stress for many of us. And I'd say it's safe to say probably all of us in different capacities. So I think that's the one thing we can probably all agree on. So I hope that today what we will help you with is some takeaway strategies to help you manage any stress that you're personally going through. Maybe you're here for something specific, or maybe you're here to help support somebody else that you know who might be going through a stressful time, and also to tackle joy. How do we infuse joy into our everyday life? And what part does that play, and how can it help in terms of our stress management? So we're going to start with some stress. Well, we're not going to start with stress. We're going to start talking about stress, and we're going to give you some tools around that. And then the second part of our talk is going to focus more on the joy, but there's going to be some overlapping in between. And then I'll save the last couple of moments to discuss and take some questions. Okay, does that sound all right? All right, perfect. So as you are probably well aware, stress definitely affects our mental and our physical well-being. That's not a secret, and it's probably not new information to you. And as you have experienced your own situations, you may have some things that kind of come to the forefront of, what has that looked like for you, or what has that looked like for somebody around you? What I'd like to start with is 3 steps is what I like to share for folks in terms of talking about how to manage your stress. And step 1 is to acknowledge it, okay? A lot of times when you're thinking about stress, a lot of times we're avoiding it, or we're going through the motions of it, but we don't necessarily stop to take a look at what specifically is going on. And those are natural reactions. So today, when you came here, was there something specific that you came here for? Was there something, or is there something going on that is particularly feeling stressful to you? And you don't have to share what it is, but if you want to say, yes, I came here for a specific reason, you can show your hands, feel free. Is there something specific? What would you rate your stress level currently? That's a good place to start. So when you're thinking about what's going on in your world, in your space, if you were to rate your stress on a level of 0 being no stress, or 10 being lots of stress, where do you rate yourself? What's your rating for your stress? Think about that. And you can feel free, if you have paper and you want to jot things down along the way, that might be helpful to you. But keep that number. I want you to actually rate yourself right now in terms of your stress. What is that to you? And then what I want you to think about is, where are the stressful parts of your life. And think about breaking it down into some categories. Is it family? Is it something going on in terms of work? Is it something that is situational? Is it something related to health? Is it something in terms of relationship? Is it environmental? Is it financial? A lot of times, people don't take the time to look specifically, where is that stress coming from? And some of the areas that I just named are the common places that stress pops up. We might feel like everything is stressful, and that absolutely can 100% be true. But I guarantee that if you were to take a scan and break down different areas of your life and your world and look at each independently, you might find that there are some things that are a bigger trigger for your stress than others. And what I would ask then is to rate each of those areas. Just like I said, rating how is stress showing up in your life right now. If you were to rate your stress level on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 again being no stress, 10 being lots of stress. If you gave yourself that overall rating, and let's say you gave yourself an overall rating of 6, okay, kind of halfway. When you look at those individual areas, family, relationship, finances, environment, work, career, where is that level for each of those areas? If you felt overall there was a lot of stress going on, and then you take each individual area and break it down and see, oh, wow, well, when I looked at it like this, finances, that's where I had a lot of stress. Environment, that's where I had a lot of stress. Family or friends, that's actually not stressful. I feel like I have a good relationship and a good feeling in that area. Then you're able to pinpoint where that stress is coming from. So if you think about stress from that angle, that would be step one, acknowledging it. Where is this coming from? What parts of my life are talking to me? The next part, or step two, is to feel it. I mentioned in the beginning that many times we have a tendency to maybe just react, respond, or retreat when it comes to stress. It's not something that we want to feel, right? I would imagine that for each of you, feelings of stress, that's not the feeling that you want to have, right? And as we know, stress negatively impacts our physical and our mental well-being. And there's different types of stress, right? There's acute. That's something that maybe think of it as an argument you might have, right? It's short, it's quick, something happens, and then it's done. Then we might have episodic. That's something where maybe we are constantly in a state of chaos and stress. And what happens to us mentally and physically when we're operating in that episodic state, if it's prolonged and it keeps happening, that's going to affect us a little bit more. And then we have chronic, right? That could be something that is all the time. Maybe it's related to situational. Maybe it is your environment. Maybe it is health related. That's a much more serious, right? So feeling. How do we feel the stress? So I'd like to have you participate in a little independent exercise just while you're sitting here. And I want you to think of I don't want you to think of the worst stress in your life, but I want you to think about something that might be something that's currently going on, or maybe it was a recent stressful situation that you felt. Where did you feel that in your body? Just take a moment and just think about that. Again, I don't want you to think about something that was traumatic. I want you to think about something, maybe there was a disagreement that you had, or maybe you had something due and you weren't sure how you were going to complete the task, and it had you feeling stressful. Where did that stress show up in your body? Part of being able to identify what's going on and where it's happening is to literally get in touch with what's going on in your body. For a lot of people, you might physically be feeling that in a certain part of your body. Maybe the physical effects of where you felt it or how you were feeling it show up in terms of your heart starts to race, right? Maybe it's you start to sweat, you start to get hot. Maybe you feel that up in your neck, your shoulders. Maybe you start to get a headache. Maybe your eyes are starting to hurt. Maybe it happens in terms of how you are physically behaving. Maybe you aren't able to sleep and your physical habits are affected. Maybe you are turning into or turning away from food. Those are all physical ways to feel stress and may be something that resonates to you. So being able to identify what does this look like to you, knowing, all right, if I think about the patterns, if I think about when I'm in a stressful situation, I tend to feel it here. Or I notice that my sleep patterns are affected, or I notice that I'm skipping meals, or I notice that, wow, I'm turning to food and I'm eating or using alcohol more than I may have. Those are all things to help pay attention to the feeling. And then once you've isolated where these things are happening and acknowledging, okay, these are the stressful situations, this is how it's showing up. A next part of feeling it is to think about, how do you want to feel? When a stressful situation occurs to you, is there a more desirable outcome? It kind of sounds silly, right? But I'm sure there is. What does that feel like for you? Or think about, what would that feel like for you? So when I asked, can you think of a situation that recently felt stressful to you and what that felt like to you, how did you react to that stress? What happened in that stressful situation? Do you have an idea? Do you remember what happened or how you responded? Taking a look at that and then having an idea of what you would have liked to have happened if you could turn around and have that time back. Would you respond differently? Is there something that could have made that situation better? Does that make sense? Okay. So in step 3, when we're talking about stress, that's where the management part comes in, okay? And a little strategy that I'll share for you to take and kind of keep this in your back pocket, so to speak, is TIPS, okay? That's a little acronym there for you. So talk about it. Talk about the stressful thing that is happening or has happened or you know that might be coming up, not keeping it to yourself. And again, that kind of goes hand in hand with acknowledging, knowing that like, yes, these are the things that are going on in my world that I feel stressed about. Maybe you're talking about it with somebody in your support system. Maybe it's a peer. someone that you can trust. Maybe it's a professional, or maybe it's just saying it out loud. Words have power. So even just allowing yourself to say, this is really stressful, rather than trying to keep it all in and manage things for yourself. So talking about it. Identifying your triggers and your anchors. So if you are thinking about what's going on in your world, are there habits or things that are a regular behavior or an occurrence? So, for example, if you are noticing that you're frequently feeling stressed, or stress is frequently affecting your life, taking a record to look at, all right, I know that on Wednesdays I go here, and I am especially feeling stressed out because of these situations that are going on. Or once a month I have to do this, and this has been causing me a lot of stress that's going on. So identifying what are the triggers, keeping an actual written record of when is the stress happening, and is there a pattern to it? That's a huge, huge part of how you can help manage what's going on in your life. And planning. So planning out what can you do differently to respond to that. That, again, kind of ties back to what is the desirable feeling that you would prefer to have, right? We don't want to feel stressed out. So what's the opposite of that? Joy. We're getting to that. But if you can plan out and prepare some things for yourself so that all right, we might not be able to remove all of the stressful things in our lives. There might be some things that we have to take care of, or that we have to come experience and have an encounter with, but we don't have to have it be as stressful if we can arm ourselves with some habits or some things that will give us a more desirable outcome. Does that make sense? Okay. And then setting realistic and manageable, what I like to call micro goals. So setting sustainable micro goals. That could be something as small as, let's say, once a month you have a meetup or a meeting, or there's an appointment that you have to have, and it's not something that you can avoid. And maybe there's somebody that's a part of that meeting or that group, whatever it is that you're going to, and you notice that every time I go, I am feeling stressed out because of this person. And whether it's an exchange that you're having with them or something that is going on in there, what is one teeny little thing that you could consistently do every month to prepare yourself so that when you go, you have a better experience, and maybe you're not as stressed out during that time? It could be something, and we're going to move into this in this next part, setting a micro goal that is a habit of, all right, well, once a month before I go to this meeting, I'm going to do a little 1-minute meditation that's going to help me so that I can be in a better mindset, that when I go to this engagement that I know I cannot avoid, I at least know that I have some autonomy in that, and something that I can better manage what's happening and where I want to be and how I feel better about that. So that's another option. How do people feel so far with some of these strategies? Are there things that you currently do to manage your stress? Anybody like to share some things? What about, I mentioned something just now. I mentioned meditation. Do any folks in here meditate? Great, good. We have a couple folks in here. Is there something specific that you do? Do you have a recorded meditation that you listen to? Is it something that you are listening to or doing freely on your own? Just on your own? Now, is that something, if you feel comfortable sharing, is that a regular practice that you do daily, or is it something that you do situationally? Daily. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Getting into a habit of doing something, for example, like meditation, that is a really great way to help manage stressful situations. It's also a great way to do some self-care and find some peace for yourself. Doesn't have to be something that's associated with stress, something that makes you feel good. Getting into new habits, if that's something that, like meditation specifically, resonates with you. When I talked about setting micro goals, you could do something like, all right, for 1 minute every day, right after I wake up, I'm going to do a little meditation for myself. And maybe it's setting an intention for what you would like to do for that day. I think a lot of times people think that starting a new habit, or specifically maybe even if we're seeing that we're talking about meditation as one way to help manage stress, you might think, oh, I have to do this for a long period of time, and then that can become stressful, right? No, it can be something really tiny that is really powerful, but if you're consistently doing it and it becomes easy and something that you look forward to, then it becomes part of your habits and your behaviors, and it expands over time. What are some other things that folks might do to manage their stress? Yes.
I find it very helpful to see friends and have a good time being with my friends, or just getting out of the house to do something that I enjoy.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that, because that's part of where we're going to be going next, is talking about joy. So finding those things that make you feel better, surrounding yourself with friends, just getting outside of the house. If you're thinking about when you're looking at what's going on in your life and the areas that might feel particularly stressful, just stepping outside, whether it's taking a walk, sitting out in the sunshine. Fortunately, we're coming into nicer weather, and we've got a lot coming our way next week, so that's a good thing. Sometimes that can be difficult in the winter and colder months, but having friends and support systems, or even just spaces that you can go where you can be around others. Being around others is something that's really helpful. People might find other things helpful too. I'm not sure. Does anybody here journal? Writing, journaling, those can also be great ways to help manage what's going on in our worlds. When I had shared that TIPS, that acronym, talking about it, writing about it, can be just as effective. Getting it out, acknowledging this is what's going on, this is how I feel, and maybe it's writing it out if you don't feel comfortable sharing it with somebody. Okay? Other things, getting physical movement, right? Having the body move, stretching, exercising, those are all great ways to help relieve some stressful things. So if you have an encounter with somebody, let's say, again, maybe there's a disagreement that happens, just knowing, okay, I'm going to take 5, I'm going to go move my body. Maybe I'm just going to go walk around the house, walk upstairs to a different space. Maybe you're going to go do a little workout in your home, or again, maybe take it outside, changing the scenery, getting some regular movement. A lot of times people, if you tend to have a stressful job, or if you're in a space where you are consistently seated and you're not getting up and you're moving around and not moving around, just that act of getting up and moving around can physically move that stress from your body, makes you feel better. We said that one of the things when it comes to identifying where stress is happening in your body, right? If you're feeling it physically and you've got muscles that are all tensed up, getting into some stretching, some movement, some yoga, some things like that can help bring some physical and mental relief to you, okay? We're going to move now into, and we're not going to go away from this because, again, this is all tied in together, but what I like to call the act of joying, right? Doing joyful things that can help bring more peace and release to our day, right? Life is short, so filling it up and making sure that the time that you're spending has good things for yourself. We do get busy in our worlds, and a lot of times the things that we may have enjoyed once, we might get busy and we forget about. So taking time to find joyful things and the things that fill you up. So we're going to talk about what I wanted to share first. This actually, recently, the Framingham Heart Study had done a study of over 4,700 residents here, right here in the city of Framingham, and found that people who reported feeling happy tended to form their own clusters with one another. And they also found that your likelihood of happiness rises by over 15% if a family member or a close friend is happy. So as you shared that you like to spend time with your friends, right? That's a good thing, right? So this is science and research that shows that spending time in spaces where you're around other happy people can help brighten your own mood. I just thought that was a little interesting study to share, local. So here's some of my top strategies for creating some more joyful moments in your life. And I like to call this a sense of joy because it's specifically talking to your senses, okay? And these are the S senses. So we're going to talk about sight, we're going to talk about scent, and we're going to talk about sounds. What are 3 things around you in your regular space that make you feel happy? So if you think about your home, if any of you here work outside your home, or there's a frequent space that you go to, what is around you? 3 things that make you feel happy. Do you have that in your space? Pets, yes. Absolutely. I have 3 at home. Anybody else? Yeah.
Cards that I've received from friends or family that I have standing up in my kitchen.
That's awesome. I do that as well. You know, little notes, cards, things that people have thought about you and sent you. Those are awesome things to have where you can see them so that you are reminded, and it's an instant pop of joy. Makes you feel good, right? You see that, and then it's a reminder. What else? Absolutely. Photos. Yeah.
I like to look at pictures of our trips.
Yes. Pictures of your trips.
Brings back happy memories.
Exactly. These are all awesome ways to use your sense of sight to bring instant joy when you need it. Along the lines of that as well, art, right? Doesn't have to be fine art. Maybe there is art that was drawn for you. Does anybody here have tiny humans in their lives, right? They create art all the time. Maybe you are an artist. Have you ever thought about creating something for yourself and having it up and in sight? What about plants, flowers, things like that? that make you feel good when you see them? How many people here have had an impulse buy of something they've seen when they're out shopping? Oh, that would look so good on my counter, right? Why did you get it? Because you liked it. It brought you joy in the moment. Maybe you saw it in the aisle. You didn't specifically go out for it, but as you were in line, you thought, oh, that thing keeps staring at me, right? Those are all ways to incorporate visually joyful things that are able to give you that pop, right? So I encourage you all, wherever you are, wherever you find yourself spending most of your time, have at least 3 things in your space that will bring you some things of joy. And hopefully some of what you all just shared maybe gives you some ideas, because if you're thinking about your environment and your space of where you are most of the time, maybe you thought of it and thought, I don't have any pops of joy in my space. Well, I'm giving you a homework assignment. I want you to find some things that are some pops of joy that you could have. Sense. Smell, the sense of smell. Now, you mentioned your photos. They give you memories and they remind you of things, right? Smells can do that too. And that's one of the senses that we tend to overlook. So what are some smells that you love? There's got to be some smells, right? I think that's something that, again, people don't spend a lot of time thinking of. So what's a smell that makes you happy? Roses. Good. Baking cookies and eating them after. Right? I have candles that I burn in my home that I particularly like, candles that smell like baked goods, right? So, again, that's that powerful scent. What else? What are some things that smell good? How about just the fresh air? The beach.
I grow herbs, so I smell different herbs. Some I grow just to walk by and smell them.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. You get those little whiffs of something, or maybe it's a big whiff of something. Like I love the smell of fresh basil. I like the smell of lemon and thyme. Like those are all things that can release some good endorphins inside of us and remind us of maybe places or happy times. Think about maybe, there's somebody in your life that wore a certain scent on them, or maybe there is a soap or a beauty product, right? And that can remind you of something happy, right? Scents can also remind you of something not so nice. So another way to incorporate your sense of scent, essential oils, right? So that could be something else. And again, these are all things that bringing you little tiny ways to have little pops of joy, no matter where you might find yourself. And the things that you can think of and that you're sharing here are also things that can help you when you are feeling stressed out, or if you're feeling sad, or if something is just really feeling overwhelming and difficult. Do you have these pops of joy available to you that you can arm yourself with, right? So not just when you want to have the happy moments, but when you're in those moments where you could use some more support, right? Sound. This is a really good one. And I would think that, what are your 3 favorite sounds? What are some sounds you like? Or maybe I should step back. When I say sounds, what do you think of? Music, yep.
Robins in the early spring.
Yeah.
Birds coming up.
Birds, the spring sounds. Ocean waves, I love ocean waves. Wind chimes, that's a sound I love. So when you're thinking about your space and where you find yourself, are there 3 sounds that you can turn to that will help give you those pops of joy? Playlists, so specific music, we mentioned music. One thing that I often encourage folks to do is have your music list, your greatest hits, your top 3 playlist handy. So I have a collection of vinyl records. I love to put that on. I like to listen to the sound of the needle coming down. But I also have digital playlists because sometimes I'm in a situation where I don't have access to my vinyl, right? It's not convenient. I can't load that up and carry it places. So with our lovely technology today, maybe you have the opportunity to have a playlist that you can have. Those are things too, that those sounds, making sure that, is that something you regularly do? Do you start your day with your anthem song? What would be your anthem song? Have you ever thought about that? What would be a song that would represent you or the feeling that you want to have all the time or most of the time? So 3 sounds. Has anybody thought about your senses in that way? Here's another tip to tie into what we're talking about here today with stress and joy. So the next time you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation, a stressful situation, and something that you wished, this is not the situation I wish I was in. Find one thing that you can see that makes you feel a little bit happier. Maybe it's not your one joyful thing, because if you're not in your own space, right? What's something that you can look around and focus on and name that one thing that makes you feel a little bit better? What's something around that you smell makes you feel a little bit better? What's something that you can hear that makes you feel a little bit better? And if you can tune into those things, I mentioned when we were talking specifically about stress, knowing your triggers and your anchors. Let those 3 senses, and just think of the S's. If you have trouble remembering, just think of the S's. Those can be your anchors to center yourself so that you can find yourself in a space that's better for you. And it doesn't have to be so reactive. Does that sound like a strategy folks could use? Okay. I hope you use that one. It can be really helpful. All right. Any questions so far? You can feel free to ask me anything. I'll do my best to answer. All right, so I want to ask you to do a little activity here, okay? So I want you to think about relationships, activities, spaces, foods, experiences, a lot of the things that we've talked about here, all of the things that bring you joy. And I want you to either make a mental list in your head, or you can feel free to make a list. I'm going to give you about 1 minute. And I want you to think about all of the things that make you feel happy and bring you joy. And I want you to write them down. Or make your mental notes. Some people like to break these out into categories and actually use those categories: activities, people, things, spaces and places. And I give you about another 15 or 20 seconds to complete those lists. All right, so now that you have your lists and your mental record of all of the things that make you feel happy, yeah.
My friend and I took an elderly man out to lunch on Wednesday. It's hard for him to get out of the house. He lives alone, but he has home health aides. So we didn't only enjoy ourselves, but we knew we were doing something good for him.
That's awesome. And that's the thing. Joy isn't just contained to yourself, what brings you joy. What can you bring to others and sharing that joy? That's awesome. That person's very lucky to have you and your friend be able to do that for them. That's
And the old man is 90.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, when you think about all of the different activities or things that make you feel joyful in the act of bringing joy to somebody else, right? That's definitely something that should be on that list. When was the last time you did something? You just did something. That's awesome. But when was the last time, when you look at your lists or when you think about the things that make you feel good, when was the last time you did those things or had those encounters? Sometimes we get away from the things that bring us the most joy. Maybe it's because of our scheduling, maybe it's because of responsibilities, maybe it's something that we used to do a long time ago, and for some reason, maybe nothing in particular, we stopped doing it. Can you bring those things back? Can you make space in your life to do some of those things, whether it's for yourself or for somebody else? And when you look at your time and how you're spending it, a lot of times people think, oh, I don't have time to do that anymore. Or, oh, that might be silly. That's something I used to do back when. But if it's something that makes you feel happy, or if it's something for somebody else, yes.
I like to travel, so I planned a trip to New Hampshire this summer. It's a 2-day trip and to Portsmouth, and it includes a boat cruise to the islands off of Portsmouth.
That's excellent. That's a great example of what can you do that's within your control to bring some joy. Maybe it's something bigger, like planning a trip. Maybe it's something as simple as somebody mentioned one of the things in their space that they have are cards and things that people have sent to them. What if you wrote a card and told somebody what they meant to you, or just sent them a card just because? Sharing and giving that joy to somebody else. And in turn, that will make you feel good as well, right? I like to share that these tools and these strategies and ideas, they're not just for you, they're for others as well. Because if we are individually taking care of ourselves and doing things that make us feel good and paying attention to our spaces and the people around us, that's going to make things better for everybody around us. And you are all teachers, right? I really do believe that we all have something that we can teach and share and show others. And you never know how something that you might do or something that you say can affect those around you. And just by seeing or hearing you do something, in turn, that can be so helpful to somebody else. And then they take that habit or they do that thing, and then they keep sharing, and it makes everything a little bit better. You're just leaving things a tiny bit better than how you found them. That's good for everybody. So when you think about those things that bring you joy, can you set a plan today to do one thing within your control, to do one of those things so that you can have a little pocket of joy that you can look forward to, and set a plan for yourself, a little goal. Give yourself a little deadline too. By next month, I will. Or by this summer, I will. Or by the end of today, I will. Notice that I said, I will. Not I plan to, or I want to. I will. How does that feel to folks? Does it make you feel joyful? I hope so. If you're planning and taking time to do something that brings you joy, right? That's something that you know that's on your schedule that you can look forward to. A lot of times when we think of how we're spending our time or how we're scheduling our time, we schedule all of the things that we have to do, or all of our responsibilities, right? And the places and things that we have to do. That's important, right? We all have things and people that we may be accountable for, but it's also very important to schedule in joy. And it can be as easy as art on the wall, looking at photos, calling up a friend, or as big as taking a trip, doing something bigger for yourself. So as we kind of wind things down and put things all together, a couple of the things that I want you to take away from today is keeping track of your stress and your joy levels. It could be, we're here at the beginning of a new month. Make on your calendar a little track of how many times this week or this month did I feel stressed? How many times did I feel joyful? Keeping track of that, noticing are there patterns, and staying aware of what's going on in your world. What are things that make you feel good? And what are the things that make you feel not so good? Give yourself time to adapt, because if some of this requires you to set up new habits, right? That takes time. So don't be so tough on yourself. If you can pick one thing to focus on and successfully, even if it's the tiniest of things, complete that, that's an awesome thing, and it's something that you should celebrate. And the more practice and the more consistent you are, the easier that will become. And the more of those things you can check off and really be proud of. Advocate for yourself and ask for help, no matter what it is. So if you need more joy in your life, if you need less stress in your life, don't be afraid to say, hey, this is something that I want to do, or this is something that I don't have the bandwidth to do right now. It feels too stressful. And asking the people around you for support. And again, that goes back to, whether it's the people that are in your family or your support network, or seeking out help from professionals, whatever you need. Speak up and advocate for yourself. You are allowed to share how you feel. And there are people out there who will listen and want to help. I'd like to take questions now. So if anybody has any specific questions or things that you'd like to share, maybe things that came up for you today, now is your time. Yeah.
Well, this isn't really a question, but
That's okay.
doing something to get me to relax after a tense situation, but it was actually running away from it. If my husband and I had a disagreement, of course that got me all tensed up and worked up and stuff like that. And then I went in the other room to
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And that's tough, you know? And I think that if we can all find ways to communicate what we need and know that not everybody is going to have the same things work for them, that's okay, right? But focusing on what makes you feel good.
What I should have done was clear up the disagreement completely and let both of us calm down before I did anything else.
Well, there's always things to think on of, you know, when we think about what would we like our desired outcomes to be, and what do we want most. That's okay. It's okay if things don't happen exactly how you may have wanted them the first time. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts that they want to share?
This is kind of weird, but I'm just curious where you found that quote from the Framingham Heart Study, because I actually work there.
Oh,
So
that's great. I believe that I did find that through Framingham's. It might have been from the Framingham Heart Study or the American Journal of, I'm trying to remember. Might have been. I can look back and find it.
it's okay. I know we put a lot of research on our website.
Yeah, I definitely found it online, and it was, I should share too. That, I'm not sure when that actual study was. It was probably about 2 years ago that I found it. So it's not something that very, like specifically this year that came out. But that's good to know.
Yeah, they do a lot of research.
Yeah,
Other researchers use our data.
yeah.
I never know what is being produced, so I was really surprised to see that.
Yeah, no, I'd say it was about 2 years ago when I found that. You're welcome.
Oh, so you found it during the pandemic?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that study I would, if I remember correctly, that was one that was done prior to the pandemic. So I'm sure that data, when it said 15% of people, they found an increase of 15% in increase in happiness. I bet that's a lot higher now. Because, again, these last few years, they've been stressful times for everybody. Lots of hard things in lots of different ways. And I want to thank everybody for coming out today and listening. I hope that you were able to learn a few things, or maybe just even it felt helpful to be in space where other folks were interested in sharing things that may have been stressful for them, or some practices that have worked to help bring some joy and some peace. And hopefully all of those things are resonating in some fashion. And I hope that at least today you can walk away with just one thing. Again, I encourage you to think of those 3 senses, your 3 S's, and don't hesitate to act on your homework assignments of doing that one thing that it's been a while that you've done, and make your plan so that you will do those things, so that you can count on some joy in your future. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate you again for coming out. You're more than welcome to reach out to me and connect. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Have a good weekend and happy holidays. There's lots of holidays going on right now. So if you celebrate, happy holidays to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really great.